Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have Alfheimr. This is a place that comes to us from Norse cosmology and is mentioned only twice in the Old Norse texts. This place is said to be an abode of the elves, which are a class of demigod-like beings from the pre-Christian mythology and religion. Since this place isn't talked about very much in the texts, there isn't a lot that is known about it, but the elves are described as being luminous and, quote, more beautiful than the sun. It is said that the Vanir god Freyr is the ruler of this land. The 9 worlds of Norse cosmology are often debated since they are never listed, but it is thought that Alfheim is likely one of them. This conclusion is likely drawn from the prominence of elves in Germanic religions. In our number 9 spot today we have Rockabara. This is a place that is found in Scottish Gaelic mythology, and it is said to be a phantom island. This island is only said to appear 3 times, so it makes sense why we may not have seen it yet. This name can sometimes be confusing because it has often been used to refer to real places that we've seen and know about, such as Rockall, which is a small isolated islet in the North Atlantic, but despite this, that is in fact not the place we are talking about. Here's the frightening part about this place that comes from the mythology though. It is said that the 3rd time we see this island will be the last, because the 3rd time the island appears, it is said will be the end of the world. The quote from the mythology says, quote, "When Rockabara returns, the world will likely come to be destroyed or ruined." So if this place really is real, let's hope none of us find out for sure. In our number 8 spot today we have Bayan. This is a place that is found in the Dove book as well as other Russian medieval books. It is described as being a mysterious island in the ocean that has the ability to appear and disappear by using the tides. It is said that the inhabitants of this island are the 3 brothers, northern, western, and eastern winds, along with the Zorias, which are solar goddesses who are said to be either servants or daughters of the solar god Dazbog. This island is featured heavily in many famous myths, such as how Koschei the Deathless keeps his soul or immortality hidden here, or how other legends refer to this island as the source of all weather. There are actually some scholars who swear this is a real island, albeit probably not the source of all weather, but hey, I've never been there. Have you? In our number 7 spot today we have Kunlun. The Kunlun is a mountain or mountainous range that is seen in Chinese mythology, and it is a very important symbol that represents the axis of the earth and divinity. This is a place that has not only been depicted through texts, but also through art. Sometimes this place appears as a pillar of the sky, and sometimes it appears to be composed of multiple different tiers. One thing that all descriptions have in common, however, is that this is a place that is referred to as mysterious, but also grand and magnificent. The base of the mountain is said to pierce far into the earth, while the top of it stretches high into the sky. This place is often associated with various means to gather some kind of immortality, but generally accounts of this place regard it as difficult to access because of surrounding waters and steep cliffs leading to extremely high heights. In our number 6 spot today we have Kolob. This one is a star or planet that is described in the Book of Abraham, which is the sacred text of the Latter-day Saint movement. According to this work, Kolob is the heavenly body that is nearest to the throne of God, and while the Book of Abraham calls Kolob a star, the text also refers to planets as stars, which is why it is difficult to assess whether it is a star or a planet for certain. According to several different Mormon writers, the Earth was created near Kolob over a period of 6,000 years, and then it moved to its current position within our solar system. It is thought that one Kolob day is 1,000 years on Earth. In our number 5 spot today we have Terra Nog. This is a land that is seen in Irish mythology, and it is the land of the young or the land of the youth. This place is depicted as an island paradise full of everlasting beauty, youth, health, joy, and abundance, which truly sounds like an ideal place. The people who are said to inhabit this island paradise are the gods or deities that were seen in pre-Christian Gaelic Ireland. In the adventure and voyage tales, various different Irish myth heroes visit this island, and to get to it they either enter burial mounds or caves, they journey through a mist, they go underwater, or they travel across the sea in an enchanted boat. This final one, the path across the sea, is said to be a golden path made by the sun on the ocean to show the direction of travel. While this place is described as being quite beautiful, with forested wilderness and meadows filled with flowers, any human who dares to visit is going to be met with hostility. In our number 4 spot today we have the House of Lies. This is a place that comes to us from Zoroastrianism. The House of Lies is like the underworld, and it is said to be a sort of deep well that is absolutely terrifying. Part of the frightening nature comes from the fact that it is extremely dark, but it is also said to be extremely narrow and that it has a very foul smell. The creatures that live here are not ones you want to encounter, as it is said the smallest of them are as large as mountains, and they are there to devour and destroy the souls of the condemned. The punishments given in this realm are said to be a direct reflection of the sins committed in life, so some people have a harder time than others, but at the end of the day, I don't think anyone is having a good time here. It is said that this place is also the cause for all severe weather like snow, cold, hail, rain, burning heat, and so on. In our number 3 spot today we have Mictlan. This location is the underworld that is seen in Aztec mythology, and it is said to contain 9 distinct levels. It is believed that most people who pass away travel through Mictlan, although there are other possibilities that do exist. A journey through from the 1st to the 9th level is difficult, but the past souls are aided and guided by the god of fire, and they must pass through many challenges, such as crossing a mountain range where the mountains crash into each other, or a field where the wind blows knives, or a river of blood that has jaguars in it. Yeah, not great, not ideal, but hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. Mictlan is also featured in the Aztec creation myth, and it is said that it is ruled by the lord and lady of the underworld. In our number 2 spot today we have Erie. This is a place that comes to us from Slavic mythology and is said to be the place where, quote, birds fly for the winter and souls go after death. This place is like paradise, and it's a place of endless spring and summer. There are gods, birds, insects, snakes, and the souls of the ancestors. In the beginning it was believed that there was only a paradise or a heaven, but eventually the idea was split into 2 realms, like a sort of heaven and hell situation. The pagan Slavic people believed that birds that flew south for the winter were flying here, and when they returned to Earth for the spring, they were actually human souls. The best description of this place suggests that it was like a garden that was enclosed behind an iron gate, which kept living souls from entering, and it was located at the crown or the top of the cosmic tree. In our number 1 spot today we have Asgard. Asgard is another location that comes to us from Norse mythology, and it is a place that is associated with the gods. Asgard appears in many Old Norse sagas and mythological texts, and, like Alfheimr, it is thought to be one of the 9 worlds. Asgard is thought to be the home of the Aesir tribes, gods, and goddesses, and according to the mythology, it is located in the sky. Obviously, that is more of a spiritual location rather than a physical one, but the text does state that Asgard is connected to Midgard, which is the world of humanity, by the rainbow bridge Bifrost. Within Asgard, there are smaller realms that do appear individually in the text, but not nearly as much as Asgard does as a whole. In ancient Norse mythology, the destruction of Asgard is foretold during Ragnarok, but also its later restoration after the world's renewal.
Number 10. Codex Gigas. Right off the hop, this book is said to give the reader the ability to harness evil and negative energy, and it's often referred to as the Devil's Bible. Already into it, here we go folks. The book was first discovered in 1648 during the 30 Years' War. The Swedish army looted Prague, and amongst the haul was the Codex Gigas. Yeah, hard to miss this one. 36 inches tall, 20 inches wide, and 8.7 inches thick, coming in at 156 pounds. Yeah, it's a little thicker than Bernstein Bears. You're not gonna miss it. It's said that this book was actually written by a monk, but said monk had broken his spiritual vows. He was of course punished, but in a pretty extreme way, which is said to be sealed behind a wall and then left there for eternity to die. Just behind a wall forever. Right before his passing though, he realized he wouldn't be able to finish said book, which is then when he summoned Lucifer and asked him to complete the book for him because he was busy, behind a wall and stuff. Yeah, like unemployed professors back then. The devil's like, I'll do that essay for you. No sweat. Take a 5, brother. Sell your soul. I got you. I'll script it. This book is filled with dark rituals, instructions on how to perform exorcisms, as well as a bunch of creepy drawings of the devil and other demons. Just for fun. Right now it's said that the book has 310 pages, but that once used to be 320. Those 10 pages that were ripped out were said to contain instructions on how someone could summon the devil. So hopefully whoever has those pages burn them, or I don't know, made a nice birthday card with them. That'd be fun. Number 9. The Book of the Sacred Magic of Abramelin the Mage. Little wordy in my opinion, but it's also a pretty good book. This book was of course created by Abramelin, who is in the title, who is indeed a mage, and he created this book as a gift for his son. Yeah, Lego wasn't a thing yet, and neither was fun, so he got him a magical book. Thanks, Dad. In the early 1900s, this book was translated into English, and that's when the rumors of the book being cursed began to spread, of course. I mean, this book contains spells, but also contains curses, so I feel like that rumor, it checks out, people are talking for a reason. Abramelin believed that everybody had their own personal demon. The good thing about this book, however, is that it holds instructions on how to get your demons under control through rituals and spiritual situations. The kicker is that it's always risky to reach out to the spiritual world, so it's really not worth it, right? That's why everybody thinks this book is so cursed. Unless you absolutely know what you're doing, the contents of this book might just be too powerful for you, my friend. Those who have had bad experiences with the book explain either bad luck or hauntings from the spiritual world are awaiting for those who read it. So yeah, stick with Arthur or Berenstain Bears, really, keep it cool. Number 8, the Book of Black Magic and Pacts. At first I thought this said Black Magic and Pets, and I got really excited for a hot moment. This book, written by A.E. Waite, is a guide on all things occult. It looks at lore, magic, occultist history, and of course ceremonies. There's certainly no issue with all this in itself in a book, but when this book is in the wrong hands, things can get a little dicey, especially considering this book has been referred to as one of the greatest overviews of occultism, and it includes a large number of magical spells from a variety of sources. Yeah, they all have spells in them. They're all like Harry Potter. They're all like the Chamber of Secrets, that book that he stabs with the tooth. They're all like that. They're all bad. The author of this book, A.E. Waite, is said to have been a British scholarly mystic as well as a poet, and it's said that he was quite a prolific writer on both the occult and esoteric matters. Nice, but he was an occult or two, but he was great with a pen. Number 7, the Munich Manual. Also referred to as the Necromancer's Manual, that's always fun. This grimoire comes to us from the 15th century and is a text that is largely focused on demonology and necromancy. Two things you want in a book. A lot of grimoires have both good and black magic, but this is one that focuses solely on the dark, bad side, know what I mean? Just in case you're a very specific demon, this book is for you. You won't believe number 4. Dive in, here you go. There are 3 different sections to this one. First section deals with the illusionist magic and spells that trick people into seeing things that aren't there. The next one is psychological magic, which is meant to use emotions, politics, and things like that in order to gain power over an individual. And if these 2 weren't scary enough, the 3rd section is the divinatory spells, which is meant to allow the reader to see into the past, present, or future. Imagine seeing into the present. What a waste that would be. You're just looking in a cauldron like, hey, that's me looking into the cauldron right now. It's like the game Portal, you're like, oh my god, it's crazy, it's so trippy. All sections are bad news in this book, but one of the most popular parts of said book is the part that includes instructions on how to make the Mirror of Lilith. We have our own Mirror of Lilith right here. I look into it every day. No spoilers, I'm only on season 27 of Life. Please don't tell me how I'm gonna pass. Thanks. Number 6, The Orphan Story. This book was originally written in the early 1600s, but it didn't end up getting published until 2018, because, things take a while sometimes. We were a bit busy. The Orphan Story is about a 14-year-old Spanish boy who heads to the Americas, a classic coming-of-age tale, a feel-good story, dare I say, until it isn't anymore. This is exactly the reason why it took so long for said book to be published. While the curse in this book doesn't come from the story itself, there's something that happens, there's something dark lurking in those pages, and people end up taking their own lives. It's horrible. The book's publisher, Belinda Palacios, who worked on the book for 2 years, explained that throughout those years, she was often warned of the cursed book and how every publisher who had tried to work on it before ended up passing away in a mysterious, tragic kind of way before they could finish the book. You know what I mean? Some Final Destination stuff would kind of happen here. Her research showed that those who tried to edit the book before either found themselves in horrible accidents or with strange illnesses, right? One of the two. Luckily, Belinda made it through the process unscathed for now, so let's just hope that maybe the curse has been lifted. Either way, I can't read, so I'm not gonna get there anytime soon. Number 5, The Grand Grimoire. This book is often referred to as the book with incredible powers, and it's been called one of the darkest books in the world, right next to Holes. Those two are tied right now. While the author of this book is still unknown, classic, the contents of it are things like black magic, dark spooky secrets, occult information, anything I just talked about, more of that. It's believed that the book was written sometime around 1521 and it's split into 2 books. Yeah, classic. He's like, but wait, there's more. Tune in next week. $15. Give me it right now. Book 1 details instructions on how to summon a demon and how to get the demon to do your bidding, do your house chores, whatever you want. Maybe even answer some phone calls, sure. The second book is split into 2 parts and it details how to make a pact with the demon and how to command the spirit, but with less tools, which means that it's significantly more riskier than the first book. They're like, hey, you can do this, but it's gonna cost you. Come to this book. People fear the Grand Grimoire because they worry that if anyone reads it fully, then the devil will then enslave their soul. Okay, you said it. Return on that one. Next, number 4, the Book of Soyga. Anything that is referred to as the Book of Death Ho ho, count me in. I'll renew my library card right now. Let's do it, let's amp it up. The Book of Soyga, this one's tough because nobody knows what language it's written in, right? So that's obviously a challenge. The beginning part of the book definitely contains some spells or incantations, and the ending of the book is really where the most mystery lies, and trying to decipher it is not that easy. It's said that a scholar called John Dee once attempted to decode the secret book, and it was so difficult that he needed to call on an angel, the angel Uriel, for help. Everyone's calling demons and angels for help. I'm like, can I do that? If I call in sick one day, can I call a demon? I don't know, we could do that. Even the angel didn't have the answers on this part, and he instructed John to call on the archangel, Michael, who would be the only one who was really able to interpret said text. After John Dee passed away in 1608, the book basically just vanished. No one knows where it went, but then, like magic, it just reappeared again in the 19th century. Despite this extremely interesting story and how it kind of draws you in, whoever is said to read the book will die 2.5 years later. So, is it worth it? Do we want to have 2 years left of our life for a book? If it's Avatar 2 and they're like, hey, you have 2 years to live after you see Avatar 2, I'd be like, okay, maybe. But this book, I'm like, nah, none of that, I'm good. Number 3, the Picatrix. This is a grimoire that is said to contain a large amount of magic that is presumed to be from the 11th century. The pages contain some philosophy, some astrology, some medieval science, stuff like that. And then there's things like recipes that involve mixing human and or animal blood. So it's one of those. Not so fun, and yeah, it's not so fun. Not a lot of pictures to color in, you know? The results are said to be magical, of course, but in reality, it's just a book on mixing horrible things together, like illicit substances and urine. Mix them together, put them in a cauldron. I'm like, no. How about that? Number 2, Sorrows of Young Werther. This is a book that came out in 1774 and it's said to have a large and negative impact on its readers right since its release. The book will summon your own inner demon, apparently. Right after this book came out, a huge wave of its readers ended up taking their own lives because of the strange and dark influence that this book had on those who read it. Young men would start trying to emulate the main character of the book by dressing like him, acting like him, that sort of thing. Not really shocking here. But the book ultimately led to horrifying actions, so in real life, these guys would also take their own lives. It was horrible. This actually led to the book being banned in some countries because, well, it's not worth the risk. See, things like this make me curious, of course, but I don't think I'd ever want to read something that depressing anyways, you know what I mean? Number 1, the Lesser Key of Solomon. This one is said to contain spells that are used for summoning over 72 different demons. And just to spice it up a little bit, to this day, no one is exactly sure who wrote it. Yeah, it's still anonymous back there, penning it up. Could have been one of the 72 demons, who knows? The Lesser Key of Solomon is made up of a few different texts from somewhere around the 17th century. This book is said to be cursed, so even having a copy of it will cause the owner to experience constant bad luck or have the worst luck of all by, passing away, biting the bullet. One person shared that the book violently just flew itself across the room at them, just like Interstellar. We just got a haunted bookshelf now to take care of. All because you bought a weird book at a garage sale, know what I mean? While we aren't sure who wrote it, there are rumors or stories that suggest that it might have been King Solomon. It is said that perhaps he wrote it for his son and then asked him to bury it with him in his grave. When being prepared for burial, a group of Babylonian philosophers found said book, and this is when they were visited by an angel who told them to hide the book from the unworthy. Yeah, only the worthy can read this one. They then placed a spell on the book, which is meant to keep it away from getting into the wrong hands, and it's said to be how the book got its curse in the first place. So, if a friend lets you borrow Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, just ask them. Ask if it's cursed before,
Starting off this countdown, we have The Sorrows of Young Werther. This book has been famously associated with something referred to as the Werther effect because of the negative impact it had on readers. So this book came out in 1774 and it inspired a huge wave of people taking their lives. It was a terrible epidemic. That's how strong the influence had on its readers. So young men started to copy the main character in the book. They would dress the same as he was portrayed in the book, and then later would take their own lives the way that he did in the book. This caused the book to be banned in countries such as Denmark and Italy. It was so bad that people believed this book was cursed, and every young man that read it will soon be tempted to take their own life, even if they were in the right mindset.
In our number 9 spot today, we have The Orphan's Story. This book was originally written in the early 1600s, but it didn't end up getting published until 2018. The Orphan's Story is about a 14-year-old Spanish boy who heads to the Americas. A classic coming-of-age feel-good story, right? Well, not exactly, and that is the reason it took so long for it to be published. While the curse in this book doesn't come from the story itself, there is something dark lurking in those pages. The book's publisher, Belinda Palacios, who worked on the book for 2 years, explained that throughout those years, she was often warned of the cursed book and how every publisher who had tried to work on it before ended up passing away in a mysterious way before they were able to finish the book. When Belinda looked into this, it turned out to be true. Her research showed that those who tried to edit the book before either found themselves in horrible accidents or with strange illnesses. Luckily, Belinda made it through the process unscathed, so let's hope that maybe the curse has been lifted. Either way, it's probably one I'll personally stay away from.
Moving on at number 8, we have the Lesser Key of Solomon. The Lesser Key of Solomon is a cursed grimoire that is said to contain summoning spells for over 72 demons, and no one knows who wrote it. What we do know though is that this book contains a bunch of compiled texts from the 17th century. Some of these texts tell the reader how to conjure and control spirits or demons. This book is apparently so cursed that anyone who keeps a copy of it will die or experience constant bad luck. One person who owned a copy of the book reported the book's pages turning on its own. Another time, the book violently flew across the room and towards them. Although we don't know who wrote the book, legend has it that King Solomon originally wrote it for his son. He then asked him to be buried with it. But apparently, when he was getting prepared for burial, a group of Babylonian philosophers found the book, and one of them got a vision from an angel. The angel told him to hide the book from the unworthy, so he decided to cast a spell on it to keep it from getting into the wrong hands. And that's how the book got cursed.
In our number 7 spot today, we have the Untitled Grimoires. A witch's spellbook should never be messed with. I feel like that should be obvious, but I'll put that out there because apparently it isn't. The Untitled Grimoires are a set of handwritten spellbooks that were sold online for $14,000 in 2013. The books were written in the 1960s by a high priestess of Wicca who was the leader of a coven, and they detail things like spells, incantations, enchantments, and instructions on summoning spirits and demons. So, witch stuff. This is all fine and well unless you're sitting there thinking about how you don't believe. If you are a non-believer, it is best to stay as far away as possible from these books. The seller of the books warned that any non-believers who mess with the book will bring upon themselves a deadly curse, and on the first page of the book, the Wiccan herself wrote that proceeding with the book may have serious consequences. It reads, "To those not of the craft, the reading of this book is forbidden. Proceed no further or justice will exact a swift and terrible retribution, and you will surely suffer at the hands of the craft." I think we can all appreciate the heads up she gave us on this one. Again, this is just another one I'll probably stay far away from, and not just because I don't have $14,000 to spend on a pair of books.
Coming in at number 6, we have The Catcher in the Rye. This book has been linked to a number of murders. It's believed that the book might have inspired these killings. First, we have John Lennon. When John Lennon was shot by Mark David Chapman, apparently he calmly sat down on the curb and started flipping through The Catcher in the Rye as he waited for the police. In fact, inside the book, it was later discovered he wrote, and I quote, "To Holden Caulfield, from Holden Caulfield. This is my statement." And he signed it Holden's name, who is the main character in the book. Furthermore, when police arrested him, he said, and I quote, "I'm sure the big part of me is Holden. The small part of me must be the devil." And during his trial, he even read from the book when it was his turn to address the court. But he's not the only one that's been influenced by this book. After John Hinckley Jr.'s assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan, it was discovered he too was a fan of the book, and a copy was even found on the table in his hotel room. And lastly, let's talk about Robert John Bardo. He took the life of Rebecca Schaefer. Well, he had the book in his back pocket while he did the deed. The list goes on and on. There are a dozen more people that apparently got inspired by this book and went on to harm or take someone's life. So some people believe that this book is in fact cursed and will drive the sane insane.
In our number 5 spot today, we have the Book of the Sacred Magic of Abramelin the Mage. When you're a practitioner of magic, you probably don't give the same sort of gifts that non-magic folk do. So it is no surprise that Abramelin gifted his son a book of spells and curses. In the early 1900s, this book was translated into English, and ever since then, there have been rumors swirling that the book is cursed, which makes a ton of sense considering, like I mentioned, it is a book of curses. Rumor has it that the cursed nature of this book in part has to do with Abramelin's belief that everyone has their own personal demon. The book holds instructions on how to get your demons under control through rituals and supernatural situations, and it is always risky to reach out to the spirit world, so maybe that's why everyone is feeling like this book is cursed. It's looking like unless you absolutely know what you're doing, the contents of this book just might be too powerful. Those who have had bad experiences with the book explain either bad luck or hauntings from the spirit world are what await for those who dare to read it.
Coming in at number 4, we have the Devil's Bible. The Devil's Bible, otherwise known as the Codex Gigas, is this massive 310-page book said to harness evil and negative energy. It was discovered in 1648 and is 36 inches tall, 20 inches wide, 8.7 inches thick, and weighs 165 pounds. So now there's this really creepy legend surrounding it. Legend goes that the book was written by a monk, but this monk broke his spiritual vows and his punishment was to be sealed behind a brick wall and left to die. The night before his death, he realized he wouldn't be able to finish this book. So he summoned Lucifer and asked him to complete it for him. In return, he offered him his soul. So legend goes that this book was finished by the devil himself. To make things creepier, this book is filled with drawings of the devil and other demonic entities. On one page, there's a 19-inch frightening drawing of Satan. And apparently the book also contains a bunch of dark rituals and facts like how to perform exorcisms. To top it all off, apparently at some point the book contained 320 pages, not just 310. Those 10 pages were ripped out because they instructed people on how to summon the devil. And thank gosh for that.
In our number 3 spot today, we have the Book of Soyga. This one is often referred to as the Book of Death, and that alone is enough to deter me. If you happen to be braver than I, unfortunately it is unlikely that you'll be able to actually read parts of this book because nobody knows what language it is written in. While the first part of the book details different spells and incantations, the ending part is the most mysterious and where the secrets lie. All the letters in the final part are written in separate boxes, and despite people trying their absolute best, it is extremely difficult to decipher. An Elizabethan scholar named John Dee attempted to decode the book, and he apparently called on an angel named Uriel for help. The angel explained to him that only the Archangel Michael is able to interpret the text. Apparently after John Dee passed away, this book mysteriously vanished, seemingly into thin air. This was in 1608, and for years and years no one could find it until it magically reappeared again in the 19th century. I don't know about you guys, but to me that sounds like some real magic. The catch with this one, however, is that it is said that whoever deciphers the meaning of the code will inevitably die 2.5 years later. So I guess this is like the Ring of books?
In our second spot, we have the Prophecies of Nostradamus. We've talked about this dude a bunch on this channel. Basically, he's a really famous seer and prophet. He's most famous for his book Les Prophéties, which contains hundreds of predictions for future events. And what's scary is that a bunch of these predictions have come true, such as JFK's assassination, the creation of the atomic bomb, rain, and the Great Fire of London, so on and so on. So he's got some credibility. But here's the thing. Are these actually predictions, or are they a list of curses Nostradamus set out for us? A number of people think that it's the second option, and that he literally has cursed us all. He has made these things happen even from beyond the grave. In fact, he managed to curse his grave, so what says he doesn't have the power to curse a book too? Like literally he warned everyone, whoever opens my tomb will be cursed. And guess what? Legend goes that one day during a war, a couple of soldiers accidentally dug up his grave. When they did, they found him with a plaque that said 1793 on it. That was the year they opened the grave. So he predicted when his grave would be disturbed. Not only that, one of the soldiers picked up his skull and immediately was shot dead by a sniper. So yeah, the soldiers were cursed by him, and now we're all cursed by him and this book.
In our number 1 spot today, we have the Grand Grimoire. This book is often referred to as the book with incredible power and has been called one of the darkest books in the world. While the author of this book is still unknown, the contents of it are things like black magic and dark, spooky secrets. It is believed that the book was written sometime around 1521, and it is split into 2 books. Book 1 details instructions on how to summon a demon and how to get the demon to do your bidding. The second book is split into 2 parts, and it details how to make a pact interact with a demon and how to command the spirit, but with less tools, which means it is significantly riskier than the instructions in the first book. Apparently in the book it even details how someone can call upon Lucifer or the devil. The book describes a few different demons, and it also gives spells that one can do for things like winning the lottery, love spells, becoming invisible. You know, while those spells certainly sound nice, magic like that always comes at a cost. People fear the Grand Grimoire because they worry that if anyone reads it fully, then the devil will enslave their soul. No thank you.
Number 10. Untitled Grimoires. The Untitled Grimoires is a set of 2 handwritten, spiral-bound spellbooks that were sold by an online retailer for nearly $14,000 back in 2013. The books were handwritten in the 1960s by Persephone Ajostri Urine, a high priestess of Wicca who supposedly led her own coven. All 250 pages are filled with incantations, spells, enchantments, and details on how to summon spirits and demons. However, there is a serious catch. The seller warns buyers that any non-believers who mess with the book would bring a deadly curse upon themselves, while Persephone herself tells readers on the first page that proceeding with the book would have serious consequences. She wrote, "To those not of the craft, the reading of this book is forbidden. Proceed no further, or justice will exact a swift and terrible retribution, and you will surely suffer at the hand of the craft." The buyer and the location of the book is currently unknown, but my question is, why would you want to buy this? Even if you are a believer, wouldn't you still be scared? Number 9. Necronomicon. The Necronomicon, also referred to as the Book of the Dead, is considered one of the most haunted books of all time. What does this book have in store? Well, you can find scary figures on each page of this book, and you can contact your loved ones who are not alive. It contains the exact way to contact the dead souls, but be warned, bringing back the dead is not for the weak. Necronomicon has also appeared in famous series like Friday the 13th and Evil Dead series. Currently, its original copy is kept in a locker of Massachusetts Masonic University. People really don't want this book to get out, so it has to be haunted, right? Number 8. The Orphan Story. We all know it can be hard to get a book published. I mean, hey, the Harry Potter transcript was denied 12 different times. But this book took 400 years to get published. The Orphan Story was written in the early 1600s by Martin de Leon Cardenas. The Orphan Story is a novel about a 14-year-old Spaniard who heads to the Americas in search of fortune. Now, this sounds like a fairly normal, feel-good adventure story, but a major darkness lurks within its pages that led to the novel not being published until 2018. Belinda Paliquios, a prover and scholar who edited the book for 2 years, says that she was warned by multiple people about the orphan story. They told her that the book was cursed, and the reason it had taken so long to publish was that anyone who worked on it would die in mysterious ways. While she initially laughed it off, research showed that those who previously edited the book died in horrific car accidents or of strange illnesses. My question is, why did she still agree to edit it? And did certain powers not want the ancient script out in the world? Nonetheless, it was published in 2018, and since then Belinda remains alive and well, so hopefully the curse is gone, but I still wouldn't want to read this book though. Number 7. Long Lost Friend. Long Lost Friend was written and published by John George Homan in 1820. The book contains a variety of folk remedies, spells, and talismans from the folk magic tradition known as powwow. While the book itself is intended to not be cursed, as it contains wonderful and well-tested remedies and arts for men, as well as livestock, according to its original German title, the book took on a sinister reputation following the so-called Hex Hollow murder committed by John Bleemer, John Curry, and Wilbert Hess. The 3 men broke into the home of their neighbor, Nelson Raymeyer, because they said he had put a curse on them. They were trying to find his copy of The Long Lost Friend and destroy it in order to end their affliction. They were unable to find it though, so they instead took Nelson's life and attempted to burn down his house. Which, you know, just seems like the most logical explanation to me. I don't know about you guys. But apparently Nelson's supposed copy of the book never turned up. Did he even have the book, or did it work in his favor all along? Only Nelson knows. Number 6. The Grand Grimoire. The Grand Grimoire, nicknamed the Gospel of Satan, isn't really a book I want to read, and I think a lot of people wouldn't want to read it due to this either. This book is said to be written by a man possessed by the devil. The 16th century book is known as one of the most terrifying occult books in existence. It contains dark incantations and instructions on how to summon demons and raise spirits from the dead. Now, that last part may seem appealing to those who are grieving or suffering loss, but this book's dark reputation makes it one of the most fearful medieval manuscripts of all time. Even opening the book is considered equivalent to selling your soul to the devil. Thankfully, the Grand Grimoire is not available for purchase due to this, and I mean, who would want to buy that? It's said that the original copy is currently kept in the Vatican secret archives and not currently available to the public, and I think that's a good call. Number 5. The Book of Soyga, aka Aldrilia Sieve Soyga Vorkar. I hope I said that right. Now, knowledge has no enemy other than ignorance, says Jane Cupin, translator of the Book of Soyga. It's also known as the book that... So, there's that. It is a 16th century essay written in Latin about demonology. Only 2 material copies of the Book of Soyga are said to exist. One was rediscovered in the British Library in 1994, and the other was owned by the scholar John Dee, who devoted his entire life to decoding it. John was forewarned that anyone who deciphers the final 36 pages is fated to die within 2.5 years. Thankfully for John, he was never able to fully decipher its true meaning. Currently, John's book can be found at the Bodleian Library, Oxford, and there are now digital copies of this book freely available to download, which I suggest you don't do, no matter how curious you are. Number 4. The Book of Sacred Magic of Abrielin the Mage. Abrielin was a strange father, to say the least. Appropriate presents for children are toys, candy, not a book full of mythical curses. But that's exactly what he gave his son. Hey, even a normal book would have been fine, but a cursed one? No way. Since it was translated to English in the 1900s, this 15th century novel has had a reputation for being cursed. There are several theories why, but most believe it has to do with the mage's belief that everyone has their own unique personal demon. Yeah. Throughout this book, readers could learn rituals that bring their personal demons under control. They could learn to perform supernatural feats using sigils of magic words on a grid, but this book has a huge downside. It's believed that anyone with a copy in their possession will be haunted by spirits from another realm. They will also experience terrible luck that will ultimately bring about their demise. Now, paranormal enthusiasts know that it's risky to reach out and communicate with the spirit world, especially when it comes to demons, so it's not surprising that readers of this book have reported bad luck and hauntings by spirits from another realm. Number 3. The Codex Gigas. The Codex Gigas was published in the early 13th century and is written in Latin. The Codex Gigas is a Bible written in a monastery in Bohemia, modern-day Czech Republic. It's also referred to as the Devil's Bible due to a fully colored portrait of Satan taking up a whole page. And when I say a whole page, I mean a full 36-inch page. Yes, this is the largest illustrated medieval manuscript in the world, with a length of 36 inches, a width of 20 inches, and a total back-to-back thickness of almost 9 inches. Wow. The page next to the illustration contains a full description of the Kingdom of Heaven. Now, there are lots of stories about this book, most likely stemming from the large portrait of the devil. According to the legend, the Codex was written by Herman the Recluse, a monk who broke his monastic vow and was sentenced to be walled up alive. In order to try and escape his dire fate, he promised to write a book that would glorify the monastery forever, a book that contained the entire knowledge of the universe. Herman the Recluse was given one try to complete the book, and if he hadn't finished it by dawn, the sentence would be executed. Realizing by midnight that the task was impossible, Herman turned to the devil, who helped him finish the book for the price of his soul. Some say that Satan's portrait is his own signature, while others believe that Herman drew the portrait himself as a thanks. Number 2. Lesser Key of Solomon. The Lesser Key of Solomon is a cursed grimoire of demonology. No one knows the author responsible for it. We don't even know when it was written, but best guesses point to it starting out as several separate texts that later came together in the 17th century. The book contains passages on how to conjure spirits of the dead and demons and how to control these entities to do your bidding. Topics like how to become invisible and locate missing or stolen items are covered. Recipes for love potions and liquors of persuasion are also scattered throughout the book. For centuries, the book has been followed by rumors that it's cursed with a spell so dark, and anyone who has a copy of the book on their shelf will face certain doom. The curse doesn't specify what will happen if you own a copy, but I wouldn't risk it. Those who have owned it have reported strange occurrences like pages turning on their own and books violently flying across the room. Strange whispers and shadow creatures have also been reported by owners of the manual. I would not want a copy of this. And coming in at number 1, the Voyage Manuscript. If humans are afraid of one thing, it's the unknown, and that's why the Voyage Manuscript has become one of the most mysterious and feared books of all time. Written in the 15th century, there are 240 pages, but there's evidence that additional pages are missing. Some pages are foldable sheets of varying sizes, and most of the pages have fantastical illustrations or diagrams, some crudely colored with sections of the manuscript showing people, fictitious plants, and astrological symbols. This has frustrated and cursed people with bad luck for years. While countless historians and researchers, such as professional and amateur cryptographers, including American and British codebreakers from both World War I and World War II, have tried to crack the code, none have been successful. The manuscript has never been deciphered, and none of the many hypotheses proposed over the last 100 years have been independently verified. The mystery of its meaning and origin has excited the popular imagination, making it the subject of study and speculation. Was it written by people from another country, an unknown species, aliens? No one knows, but it's been long speculated that a fatal curse will be unleashed on anybody who finally unlocks this terrifying language. Number 10. The Devil Portrait. The Codex Gigas was published in the early 13th century and is written in Latin. It is also referred to as the Devil's Bible due to a fully colored portrait of Satan taking up a whole page. And when I say a whole page, I mean a full 36-inch page. Yes, this is the largest illustrated medieval manuscript in the world, with a length of 36 inches, a width of 20 inches, and a total back-to-back thickness of almost 9 inches. The page next to the illustration contains a full description of the Kingdom of Heaven, and there are lots of stories about this book, most likely stemming from the large portrait of the devil. According to the legend, the codex was written by Herman the Recluse, a monk who broke his monastic vow and was sentenced to be walled up alive. Now, in order to try and escape his dire fate, he promised to write a book that would glorify the monastery forever, a book that contained the entire knowledge of the universe. Herman the Recluse was given one try to complete the book, and if he hadn't finished it by dawn, the sentence would be executed. Now, realizing by midnight that the task was impossible, Herman turned to the devil, who helped him finish the book for the price of his soul. Some say that Satan's portrait is his own signature, and others believe that Herman drew the portrait himself as a thanks. Whichever it is, it creeps me out. Number 9. Can't fix her. This user went on Twitter to discuss what they thought was a disturbing note they found in a book. The book is Wizard's First Rule by Terry Goodkind, and on the note it says, "Little girl, 7 blonde, poked an eyeball, bleeding out of it, can't fix or we won't get our money, can't fix her." Now, what does that mean? It appears no one really knows. The user said, "It's been bothering me, especially the last sentence, sad face. Do you think this could be someone fooling around or more like a guilty conscience? My mom thought it might be a note from a foster parent with the comment about not getting their money. The idea really worries me. What should I do?" Now, others in the comments think it might be someone writing down parts of a dream they had, as it's not very coherent, but it seems like there will never be an answer to who wrote this or why. Number 8. The bookmark. A user on Reddit posted a creepy message found in an unfolded bookmark in a library book. The note says, "This is a place made sinister, these figures unguided, dim light suits you you well. With throbbing unending chorus we sing, this is a life that should be left alone. And now no one really knows what it means, as none of these sentences can be found anywhere online as a song lyric or quotes. Some believe it might just be poetry from some tortured soul, while others think this person was trying to write a song and that they are lyrics. It seems like we'll never know the answer unless the person who wrote this note steps forward and explains it. Until then, it is a mystery. Number 7. Read no further. The Untitled Grimoires are a set of 2 handwritten spiral-bound spellbooks that were sold by an online retailer for nearly $14,000 back in 2013. The books were handwritten in the 1960s by Persephone Andrestia Arene, a high priestess of Wicca who supposedly led her own coven. All 250 pages are filled with incantations, spells, enchantments, and details on how to summon spirits and demons. However, there is a serious catch. The seller warned buyers that any non-believers who messed with the book would bring a deadly curse upon themselves, while Persephone herself tells the readers on the first page that proceeding with the book would have serious consequences. She wrote, "To those not of the craft, the reading of this book is forbidden. Proceed no further, or justice will exact a swift and terrible retribution, and you will surely suffer at the hand of the craft." Now, the buyer and location of the books is currently unknown, but my question is, why would you even want to buy this? If a book has a warning to not read it by the author, you best believe I would not lay an eye on it. Number 6. Best Dad Certificate. Another Reddit user told this story saying, "I bought a Calvin and Hobbes collection from a local bookstore's used section. When I brought it home, I found a Best Dad Certificate given by a little girl to her father. I looked up the names and both had passed away pretty close to one another within the past few years. Now I have a suspicion from the daughter's obituary that she may have ended her life. I contacted the funeral home in the case of the dad's obituary, not sure why, but it seems safer. They were able to ask the mother if it was okay for me to send their certificate to the funeral home for her and if she wanted the book. She, through the funeral home we never spoke, requested the certificate but not the book, which I sent. What's funny is my dad, who is deceased, was the one who got me into Calvin and Hobbes and would read it to us or buy more books. I included a card with the certificate just mentioning how meaningful it was for me to find it, and then I donated it to an animal shelter, at which the obit mentioned the daughter volunteering. My dad had only been dead a couple of years and the whole thing felt very strange and meaningful. Now, this whole situation is kinda creepy but heartwarming all at the same time. Number 5. The Code. If humans are afraid of one thing, it's the unknown, and that's why the Voynich manuscript has become one of the most mysterious and feared books of all time. Written in the 15th century, there are 240 pages, but there's evidence that additional pages are missing. Some pages are foldable sheets of varying sizes, and most pages have fantastical illustrations or diagrams, some crudely colored with sections of the manuscript showing people, fictitious plants, and astrological symbols. This book has frustrated and cursed people with bad luck for years. While countless historians and researchers such as professional and amateur cryptographers, including American and British codebreakers from both World War I and World War II, have tried to crack the code, none have been successful. The manuscript has never been deciphered, and none of the many hypotheses proposed over the last 100 years have been independently verified. The mystery of its meaning and origin has excited the popular imagination, making it the subject of study and speculation. Was it written by people from another country, an unknown species, aliens? No one really knows, but it's been long speculated that a fatal curse will be unleashed on anyone who finally unlocks this terrifying language. Number 4. The Business Card. A Reddit user made a post explaining that their mom's friend found a business card for John Wayne Gacy's contracting company in a book. They said, "I asked her what book. She says that she doesn't remember what the exact book was, but said it was a manual for something, possibly a car." Now, for those of you who don't know, John Wayne Gacy was known as the Clown Killer. He ended the lives of at least 33 young men and boys in Norwood Park Township, Illinois. Typically, he would lure a victim to his home and dupe them into donning handcuffs on the pretext of demonstrating a magic trick. He would then take advantage of them and then take their lives. codex. 26 victims were buried in a crawl space of his home, 3 others were buried elsewhere on his property, and 4 were discarded in the Des Plaines River. He was convicted of 33 deaths and was sentenced to death. Now the question is, did Gacy leave his own card in there for someone to find and call? Was this to lure victims, or did he give it to someone and they accidentally left it in there, unable to contact him? If it was the latter, that's good because it might have saved that person's life. Number 3. Secret meeting. A user posted online a note they found in a book in a coffee shop. The note said, "Congrats, you have found the note. I will give you $300 if you come back here on May 27th, 2015. The code word is," and then the word is covered with the poster's thumb. Now this is interesting and mysterious. Unfortunately, this user never posted an update, so we don't know if they went and met up with the person, and I mean, who even cares about the money? I would want to go and see who wrote this note. It seems like a fun adventure, so hey, why not? I hope the person did go though and see what was going to happen. Number 2. Divine figure named Bakothea. The Handbook of Ritual Power is about 1,300 years old and is written in Coptic and Egyptian language. It's made of bound pages of parchment, a type of book known as a codex. The ancient book starts with a lengthy series of invocations that culminate with drawings and words of power. These are followed by a number of prescriptions or spells to cure possession by spirits and various ailments, or to bring success in love and business. Some of the invocations seem to be more associated with a group that flourished in Egypt during the early centuries of Christianity and held Seth, the third son of Adam and Eve, in high regard. One invocation in the codex calls Seth, the living Christ. The opening of the codex refers to a divine figure named Baktiothah, whose identity is a mystery, researchers say. The lines read, "I give thanks to you, and I call upon you, the Baktiothah, the Great One, who is very trustworthy, the one who is Lord, and the 40 and the 9 kids of serpents," according to the translation. Not to mention, the identity of the person who used this codex is a mystery. The user of the codex would not necessarily have been a priest or a monk, so that's just another missing piece to this puzzle. And coming in at number 1 is the Death Row Note. Claire Fantel found a Bible while cleaning, which was stuffed with newspaper clippings and had been owned by her mother. Along with the clippings was a yellowed old letter with a sinister name at the bottom, that of H.H. Holmes. Now for those of you who don't know, he claimed to have ended the lives of 27 people before he was arrested, tried, and executed. He had constructed a hotel of horrors, later known as the Murder Castle, to target guests visiting the Windy City during the 1893 World's Fair. The building was equipped with soundproof rooms and had gas lines that could be used to asphyxiate guests. It also had trap doors and a secret series of tunnels that Holmes would use to spirit away their bodies, which he was believed to have dissected and sold. In the basement were a dissecting table, stretching rack, and industrial oven. Now bodies could go for between $8 and $10 at the time, which is between $207 and $260 in today's money. Now much of the note is illegible, but it is dated May 7th, 1896, the day Holmes was hanged in Philadelphia after admitting to the deaths. It begins, "Dear Father, daily I must write and make you know the kind feelings I have for you." Now the rest is unclear except the final line of "I need your prayers after my death, with all my heart, H.H. Holmes, May 7th, 1896. Now this is extremely creepy, and it sounds like this note belongs in a museum.
Starting us off at number 10, the Book of Soyga. During Queen Elizabeth I's reign, one of her trusted advisors, John Dee, was a mathematician and astronomer who was beyond obsessed with the occult, who with the help of his medium spent much of his life trying to decipher this strange magic Latin book. Often referred to as the Book That Kills, it is said that John Dee struggled to decipher the final 36 pages, so he summoned the archangel Uriel to help with the translation. However, Uriel explained that the book only came into existence when Adam ended paradise, and so it could only be interpreted by the archangel Michael. However, what's perhaps most interesting and strange about this book is that after John Dee's death in the early 17th century, the book disappeared off the face of the planet for 385 years, only showing up again in 1994 when 2 copies appeared, one in a British library, the other in a Bodleian library. Now, scholars are still trying to figure out its mysteries, but the book is not an easy code to crack. So far, they've
they found a disturbingly complicated codex of demonology, magical incantations, and astrology, all of which could potentially cause quite a bit of havoc should the book end up in the wrong hands. Plus, if the legend surrounding it is true, then whoever deciphers the final 36 pages is fated to die within 2.5 years. Coming in at number 9, the Necronomicon. Besides being a tongue twister, the Necronomicon is a truly nightmarish book that not only is said to contain the power to resurrect the dead, but it's also described as being bound in human skin. So already we're off to a cursed start. Now, to be fair, the catch with this book is that it is a fictional grimoire that at one point in time only existed in the world of horror writer H.P. Lovecraft. However, as notoriety grew for the book, a physical version was created, and some say that it holds all the same horrors as the Necronomicon from Lovecraft's writings. Essentially, the fear around this book is that while its origins may have been fictional, bringing it into existence could have brought forward the demons that it speaks of, and some believe that opening it could open up a whole world of demons this world is not prepared to face. Coming in at number 8, the Munich Manual. Sometimes referred to as the Necromancer's Manual, this 15th century Latin grimoire centers solely around demonology and the use of dark magic. But what exactly is so spooky about this book? Well, the manual is broken down into 3 sections: illusionist magic, psychological magic, and divination, and goes into intricate details about how to use each of these kinds of magic to get what you want from people. Illusionist magic is pretty much what it sounds like, creating spells that trick people into seeing things that aren't there, while psychological magic is meant to emotionally manipulate others, and of course divination is used to see into the past or future. Now, I suppose, like anything, in the right hands this wouldn't be so bad, but we're imagining the worst possible scenarios over here. Plus, if it were just those 3 things, we might be able to brush it off, but it also goes into how to summon demons and such, so yeah, definitely not a book that should have ever been opened. Coming in at number 7, The Orphan Story. Unlike some of the others on this list, this next book isn't an ancient text or evil manual, but an epic novel written in the early 17th century by Martin de Leon y Cardenas, a monk who broke his sacred vow. However, before you get too comfortable, let me tell you why this is a book you should stay very, very, very far away from. Despite being written some 400 years ago, this book wasn't actually published until 2018. And the reason being is that prior to that, every other publication fell through because the involved parties kept dying under mysterious circumstances. Some fell ill and died suddenly, others got into freak accidents, and this pattern continued for just about everyone who came into contact with it. Which, I don't know, maybe that should have been a sign, but hey. Coming in at number 6, Voynich Manuscript. Filled with bizarre symbols, undecipherable language, and crude drawings of nude women, the Voynich Manuscript is mainly of concern because no one is actually able to determine what the heck it's about. So I guess it's kind of a devil you know versus devil you don't kind of situation. From what experts have been able to decipher, the manuscript appears to date back to Central Europe, sometime in the late 15th century or early 16th century, and is thought to be an occult book of some kind due to the references to medicinal herbs and zodiac symbols. But beyond that, it's kind of one large mysterious and creepy book with an unknown author. The first known owner of the book was an alchemist, George Barash, but strangely, George apparently had no idea what the book was or how it became one of his possessions, which, I mean, is definitely very, very odd. Of course, like many unsolved mysteries, there are some conspiracy theories that have followed it around, the wildest one claiming that the text was brought to Earth by aliens, hence why George would have no knowledge of how it came to be in his house and would explain why no one can figure out the language it's written in. Believers in this conspiracy also say that deciphering the manuscript will unleash the curse, killing anyone who reads it from that point forward. I mean, could it be nothing? Sure. But does that mean I am keen to find out for myself? Absolutely not. Coming in at number 5, the Oralinda book. So I will start off by saying that the general belief is that this book is not a real ancient text, but rather a forgery disguised to look like one. However, forgery or not, it was still written by someone and is super duper evil, so it definitely deserves a spot on this list. The Oralinda book first came to public awareness in the 1860s. However, it wasn't until the 1930s when the so-called historical manuscript became a favorite of World War II Germans and its association with occultism began. Leaders like Heinrich Himmler considered this book the Nordic Bible and believed that it confirmed that the Aryans were the original people of Atlantis and essentially all of Western civilization, thus further embedding their views of white supremacy. To this day, there are some with the same beliefs as Himmler who use this book to defend their twisted beliefs, and for that reason, it may just be the darkest book of all. Coming in at number 4, the Picatrix. Presumed to be from the 11th century, this grimoire of Arabic magic has long been considered one of the most disturbing books in history. Now, unlike some of the others on this list, you won't find much about demons or the devil, but instead scholarly work filled with philosophy, astrology, and medieval science, which by itself would be just fine. But along with all of that are some of the most insane recipes known to mankind. For example, there are recipes for concoctions that mix humans and animals' blood, brains, urine, and other bodily fluids with opium or other dangerous substances, promising to achieve magical results. Some recipes promise a transfiguration of sorts, for example. Should you wish to appear in the form of an animal, all you have to do, apparently, is take the semen of a healthy man and put it in an eggshell, together with the semen of the animal you wish to become. From there, simply leave the egg buried in warm manure for 3 days, and your wish will be granted. Now, that is just one spell. There are hundreds of others to choose from, but if that's the general vibe, then, well, I'm good. Coming in at number 3, the Lesser Key of Solomon. Also known as the Clavicula Salomonis Regis, the Lesser Key of Solomon is believed to be a cursed grimoire of demonology that should absolutely never be toyed with. Now, no one is entirely certain who the author or authors were, but it's estimated to have been compiled somewhere in the 17th century, which kind of makes it extra creepy, just considering that it's an old book with no known author. Inside the cursed book, you can apparently find recipes for love potions or liquors of persuasion, and if that isn't quite up your alley, do not fret. It's also said to contain passages on how to conjure spirits and demons, as well as how to control these entities to do your bidding, which, frankly, if you are conjuring a demon, I'm not sure there is much you, a human, could do to control it, but also, I'm not out to test that theory, so who knows, maybe I'm wrong. On top of detailed instructions about how to conjure dangerous demons, there is also a guide on how to become invisible, as well as locate missing objects, which at least that's a bit more practical. But either way, this is not a book you should be snooping around inside, as it's reportedly so cursed that it will doom anyone who so much as has it on their bookshelf. Allegedly, those that have owned it have experienced the book flying violently across the room, pages turning by themselves, and haunting visitations from a shadow creature, which pretty much proves that this book should have never been opened in the first place. Coming in at number 2, Codex Giga. If there was a contest for the largest book, I would definitely put this one in the running. Measuring 3 feet long and weighing 165 pounds, this Latin manuscript is not only massive in size, but also massive in terms of the amount of disturbing content that can be found inside. Written in the 13th century by a Benedictine monk, this gigantic manuscript contains a wide-ranging array of information, from a complete copy of the Bible to how to perform an exorcism. So why is it so disturbing, you might be wondering? Well, first off, besides the Bible stuff, it's filled with dark rituals and imagery, including a 19-inch drawing of the devil. But the real curse all has to do with its origins. According to legend, it's said the monk who wrote the novel novel had actually broken his vows, and so was sentenced to die entombed behind a brick wall. His fate closing in on him, the night before his death, he decided to write down everything he knew about the human experience. However, as you can probably imagine, not many people can write a 620-page book in one evening, especially when you have to manually scribe the entire thing. So realizing he would not finish before he would be sent to death, he summoned Lucifer, and in exchange for his help offered his soul for the rest of eternity. Meaning, the book was allegedly completed by the devil himself. And last up today in our number 1 spot, the Grand Grimoire. Widely regarded as the most potent and deadly of the occult books in existence, the Grand Grimoire was written sometime in the 16th century and remains not only one of the most disturbing books of all time, but just maybe the most dangerous one too. As legend has it, the author of this grimoire was possessed by the devil at the time of writing, and so over time it has also become known as the Gospel of Satan, and it's certainly filled with enough dark content to make that seem true. Filled to the brim with dark incantations that can allegedly teach readers how to summon powerful demons or even bring back the dead, it's said that anyone who so much as opens the book is offering their soul to the devil, which is a pretty hefty price to pay for opening a book. However, if you are looking to command a legion of demons, I suppose that Satan's gotta get something out of it. Now, jokes aside, this book is actually said to be so dangerous that it currently resides inside the Vatican's secret archives, as not only does it possess the capability to destroy the world as we know it, but it's rumored to be completely indestructible as well, even by fire. So, for obvious reasons, you should not go opening this one.